Hey, what's up, listeners? Welcome back to Yellow Spandex. This week, we've talked about all kinds of crazy things like the live-action series on Netflix, Cowboy Bebop, should be out, I don't know, sometimes next year or in 2020 maybe. We also talked about Shazam. What else did we talk about?
And sequels and stuff for Shazam, like Black Adam's origin story.
That's right. We even get in depth with Morbius, the old Spider-Man villain.
Yeah, and I think we talked about Ghost in the Shell a little bit, along with Cowboy Bebop. And
That's right. And then we can't forget about Endgame.
Oh, a lot more about that when it comes out, but you guys are probably going to listen to this right before it comes out.
That's right, so stay tuned. Here we go. We're getting it started. Thanks for coming back to Yellow Spandex. I'm Vince, and I'm one of the people who talks too much on this show.
To be honest, I think you don't talk enough.
Oh, that's true. I'm actually like the opposite of what I just
said. We're
said.
here, folks. We're at Endgame week.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, I'm going to cry.
Also, just to clarify so people don't ask why I haven't talked about it, we did record this slightly early, so I haven't played Mortal Kombat 11 yet, so that's why you haven't heard me talk about it.
I'm sure if you go to his Instagram or whatever, you probably
going to
see
all kinds of stuff. Or there'll be nothing on it because I'll just be hiding.
That's true. I've already been trying to get out of Endgame spoiler stuff. Like I think this week, I think I'm going to start. Even maybe tomorrow, I might not go online at all.
I'm not hiding. I'm not hiding
silent.
Yeah. I'm not hiding because of spoilers. I'm just hiding because I'll just be playing Mortal Kombat.
Okay,
but you won't see him. He will be spooked of the tunnel people.
Yeah.
Last week we definitely talked about Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
We definitely, whenever the new Star Wars, Mortal Kombat is killing it probably right now.
It killed it before the pre-orders alone.
Shazam was amazing.
Yeah.
What, biggest movie ever now? Like,
I don't know if it did as well as Aquaman, but it's definitely like people.
I don't think
for DC.
I don't think it's the biggest movie ever, but it did really well.
Yeah.
Did it do? I wonder if Shazam did the best out of all the DC movies.
I don't think
far.
it definitely didn't beat Aquaman. Like Aquaman, just was so massive.
Okay.
But he is not a known character, not to the general public. Aquaman, even because everybody makes fun of Aquaman, is a known character.
Also, I don't want to speak for other people, but I feel like the Aquaman movie translated internationally, and Shazam had a lot of very American humor. And or very Western humor at the very least. So I don't know, I don't know how other translations work because I know with different voiceovers sometimes they have to make jokes in other contexts, and things. So I don't know internationally how big it was.
I remember Weird Al did that his movie, which was. Gosh, what was that?
UHF?
UHF. And he said they had to rename it.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, they called it Vidiots from UHF or something. Vidiots from UHF. And they're like, we need to pitch this to this other country because this. And it's like, okay, well, why do we need to name it? He's like, well, how about if we name it this? And he's like, I don't care. And then he gets there and the first person stands up at the press junket in that country. And they're like, excuse me, why did you name this Vidiots from UHF? And he's like, I don't know. I didn't name it. Is this guy? Some other guy named it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Translations of different cultures is interesting.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I don't know, do you guys remember MTV Spring Break?
Yeah.
Vaguely.
So there was a host, I don't know if you remember, but it was a guy in a big tiki,
tiki head
thing, and his name, and I learned later that they named it on the spot. Like one of the hosts just they didn't have anything written. They were just like, this is Machu Chachi, because it sounded vaguely island-ish or whatever. That probably wouldn't fly nowadays. It'd be highly insensitive. But what they didn't gather was that couldn't air in Korea, and Korean viewers in America were kind of like, why'd you name him that? Because Machu Chachi, phonetically, kind of sounds like the Korean word for big dick. So I remember watching that, and this big tiki comes on, and I also I don't know.
Parents stick their head in the room and be like, "What?
Why are you watching this?" Because this giant wooden head, I'm Machu Chachi. Okay,
he's shaking it around.
Yeah. So I don't know. You never know how things translate to other countries.
Didn't that happen before with your parents thought they were calling some kid a stupid kid or something?
Yeah. So when Howie Mandel had that cartoon Bobby's World.
Oh, that's what it was.
So Uncle Ted always called Bobby, yo, Babo.
Mm-hmm.
So in Korean, I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, but I'll do as close as I can. It's Pabo.
Yeah.
So it sounds very similar to that, which is like a little dummy. Yeah. So it's like, yo, Babo. And my mom's like, why is he calling him a dummy? He's just a little kid. Later in life, I found out that my mom called me the Korean equivalent of little shithead for my entire life. And still to this day doesn't think I know what it means. I found out when I was roughly 14 or 15 from a Korean foreign exchange student because she was like aghast. She was like, "You let your mother talk to you that way?" He's like, "I always thought it was son." She's like, "No, it's a very derogatory term."
I thought it was "I love you."
Oh wow.
It was just a little joke of hers.
My kids come home sometimes because we live in like Los Angeles area, and so there's a very Armenian and Korean, and it's just kind of weird, like those cultures kind of seeing clash. And she'll come home all the time, being like trying to speak the words that the Korean kids tell her. And one was Pabo.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was funny.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's like a curse word. I think it's just like a "you're dumb" kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the thing my mom used to call me was very much a curse word.
So we talked about Shazam. This week we want to talk about Cowboy Bebop.
So this kind of hits two strings because Vince is a huge fan of the anime.
The way they wrote the Space Cowboy has really like affected my life, and so much so that I've watched this series. I don't know. I can't even count how many times. It never gets old to me. I can rewatch those. It's not a very long series at all. There's only like,
It's basically a movie, right?
it's like one season. There are several movies. They made a few movies, all with the different plots, everything. But overall, like Cowboy Bebop is like your quintessential anime, one of the most popular, especially when it was on television for Toonami.
So Netflix a while back announced they were going to do a live action Cowboy Bebop, which sounded interesting. I was a little skeptical at first because Western studios adapting anime don't have a good track record of doing it correctly or representing very well.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, right. Scarlett Johansson is going to be
John.
is going to be the main character. Sure, whatever. But then our friend Leo Camacho, who's an actor and cosplayer, like photoshopped himself into like a poster for Netflix, and we're like, "Congrats, Leo! Oh my god, that's perfect. He looks like the character." And I thought that was awesome, and it turned out to be like a joke. Like, I don't think he actually meant it to be a joke. I thought he meant it to be something cool, but he's so convincing as that character. What's the main character's name?
Spike Spiegel.
Spike. So when he was such a convincing Spike, I was like, oh, that'd be cool. But I mentioned that to Vince, and Vince was like, it's actually very important that he's an Asian actor in this one.
Yeah, because he's part of the Japanese syndicate, or he used to be a part of like the gangs called the Red Dragon. So like,
So
if
that
he was an Italian or Greek
It was
guy,
Ryan Reynolds.
this would not work.
So that, but then I was like, well, that never stopped any of these studios before and things. But huge win. They announced recently, a couple weeks ago, that John Cho would be Spike.
I'm so happy about this. This is great because I think he'll do a really good Spike. And Spike's personality is not going to be an easy one to act either.
But if that name sounds familiar and you can't put a picture in your head, John Cho was the Asian guy in Harold and Kumar. But yeah, he also had a recent indie movie, Searching, that I haven't seen yet, but I really want to see. That's supposed to be like phenomenal. But I know I try my best not to bring that up a lot, but it comes out a lot. It's representation in Hollywood. This was a huge win for the Asian American acting community. Like, there's hashtags created like, John starring John Cho, blah, blah, and stuff, because it was someone who's like a good actor. It wasn't just like a token. It fit the character, like the story, like Vince said, like it was really important for him to be at least remotely Asian. It couldn't just be like Chris Evans is suddenly going to be,
Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson.
I'd have hated on it so hard.
And John's a pretty big name, but I feel like they're still taking a little bit of a risk because he's not like a AAA, like you're gonna get like it's not like The Rock starring in something.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool. Hopefully it does well. I think what's really going to make it do well is if the Asian community actually supports it. Because that's not a great... There's another fault on the Asian side is sometimes they're not the best at supporting their own kind.
There's
Media,
a couple of really important things, John, because we know you're listening. Spike, well, first off, he's a bounty hunter. I forgot to...
I was going to say, probably give a rundown for people, because I'm sure I didn't know anything about this, so I'm sure there's some people that don't know anything about it.
The only thing I know about Cowboy Bebop was they use a lot of new wave jazz.
So, so like it was for the band that was created for Cowboy Bebop. There's a lot of beats that feel like they should be more dramatically influenced by the music should be more dramatically influenced by the scene, but instead you have this like dramatic thing happening, and all of a sudden you got this like upbeat bebop jazz like hitting in the back. So you're like kind of confused while you're watching Cowboy Bebop sometimes because the emotions don't match the music. But overall, it's more of an art piece, the whole entire thing, than it is like these like serial kind of moments. So the reason they call it Cowboy is because Spike Spiegel and Jet Black are both bounty hunters. And then later on, they meet Faye Valentine, and she's also a bounty hunter, and they bring in bounties and get money, kind of like Alita Battle Angel. They're the hunter warriors or whatever, and they bring the heads in, and basically they get money for the heads or whatever. But for Cowboy Bebop, they have to be alive in order to collect the bounty. They have to give them into the authorities in order to collect. So Spike and Jet are basically in the entire season going through just trying to survive, and it's almost like a starving musicians. Like they never have food on the ship. Oh yeah, so I should say that too. Jet Black has a big ship called the Bebop.
So Cowboys.
So they're Cowboy Bebop. And Spike has a ship called the Swordfish, which is a racing ship that Jet and him actually they fasten a bunch of different weapons and like things attached to this race ship. Anyway, so they go on, they hit bounties, and then eventually they meet Faye, and Faye also joins them on the ship. And then later on, they meet a little girl named Edward, and she's a brilliant hacker. So it'd be really interesting to see what they do for Netflix, and if they try to just like throw all these characters in the first couple of episodes, or if they try to like actually do what the series did and kind of playing it out throughout the first season.
That's something else I didn't read up on. If the Cowboy Bebop's going to be a movie or a series.
Right, and that's what keeps confusing me because there are Cowboy Bebop movies.
Live action series.
Oh, there you go.
All the actors here. We're looking at John Cho. It looks like
the guy that played that was in Luke Cage.
Mustafa. Is that him?
Yeah.
Shakir.
So Mustafa is going to be Jet Black. That's interesting.
Okay, so it says live action series, so it will be a series.
Yeah, that's what I figured. She's going to be Faye Valentine. Okay, what's her name? I had hot all the names.
I like this person's comment though on Twitter. It says, "Me, I will never be down for Cowboy Bebop series." John Cho walks into the room, blue suit, smoking a cig. Put this in my eyes.
Yes.
It's like the Star Wars thing from last week. Like,
all the
I'm
way
not
to
going
the
to
top.
watch this. Like, whoa, what? Okay, fine. I'll watch it.
A little higher. All right, right there. All right, so yeah, John Cho will play Spike Spiegel, Mustafa as Jet Black, Daniella Pineda as Faye Valentine, and Alex Hassell as Vicious. He's gonna interesting. Okay, so Vicious is like Spike's the protagonist, where Spike is the antagonist. Where I did that in reverse. So Vicious is the bad guy. Anyway, Jet used to work for the police, the Mars police or something like that. Oh, that's another thing, is this is all like space and everything. So there's Earth, there's Mars, there's different planets that I can't even freaking name. There are like space stations that like have entire civilizations on them.
This is starting to feel like the Hellboy movie we just saw.
It gets like if you actually go through it, especially if you've seen both or all the movies too, because there's a planet called Titan, and there's things that Spike was a part of.
Does
like
it have
missions.
Does it have a feeling that's kind of like Firefly? Like you got Cowboy and Bebop and space.
Yeah, it's like a piecemeal from all these different genres.
It
that somehow works so flawlessly.
It kind of makes sense though, like from a cultural aspect, because this is a Japanese anime, right? Mm-hmm. So in Japan, cowboy culture and country music are huge, and so is jazz. So it kind of makes sense that those are the pieces of culture they're like putting together for something. I don't know if that was the thought when they were making it, or if it happened organically, or like what, but like it kind of makes sense as far as influences and things. But I had a question for Vince as a huge fan of Cowboy Bebop. Do you think it would be better for them to try to recreate the original series with live action, or would you like to see them continue the story in live action?
I'd actually like them to recreate what is out there now as far as, what's canon, only because I would rather see the anime continue the story than someone else try to.
Well, maybe continues a little weird, like so Alita Battle Angel doesn't necessarily continue the story.
It kind of just grabbed from all of the content,
but it's the intersection of all the existing Alita stuff.
Yeah.
So would you rather see something like that, or do you want to see them do like a beat for beat, like kind of like Watchmen, where they do like shot for shot from like the panels?
Well, I'm glad that we were able to distinctively make the whether it's going to be a movie or a series. So we found out it's going to be series, but if it was a movie, that's probably what they would end up doing. You know, is just take it like the good pieces of all of this what's out there and make a movie. So I'm really, really interested to see what they do for a series. Like,
I think that it's probably better. I think most things are better as a series because then you can get into characters and and plots and stories.
it just gives you more time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
gives you
that's
so
why
much more
Daredevil and all and everything else. It gives you more time than just a silly movie would.
The problem here, guys, John, you're still listening, right? There's a lot to unpack here. You can't just kind of like graze through stuff. Throughout the series, there's so much character development that just kind of naturally unfolds, and the way transitions work, like the end of battles or like the ends of the days, the beginnings of the mornings, like the way everything transitions it feels and flows very naturally, like you are actually living on the Bebop with them. Like you spend the morning with them, you spend an afternoon, you feel hungry with them in the evening, and then you see them eat like ramen noodles. Like they need to bring the emotions and the environment of the Bebop and this bounty hunting game to the series.
So the style of this, should it be like ultra realistic, like this could happen in a couple centuries, or should it be like a heightened reality, like Alita, where it's like there's a super stylized, very unrealistic but really like fun thing, or should it be the other way? Should it be like not? Should it be the yellow spandex where it goes like off into like fantasy world, or should it be like X-Men black suits? Like
this like Blade Runner versus
it should kind of feel like a Western, like in the sense of like you start off with the hero, in a desert somewhere, but it's not even in the beginning. Like where you start off is actually in the middle or the third act, so you find him in the desert, but then it zips back to present time, and then it shows you how he ended up in the desert by himself. Like that's a very like Bebop thing to do, But it should feel like the way things play out is kind of like a Western, like the way the plot unfolds. Not much so as of like a futuristic, like look wise, like the place should look futuristic, or if like clothes should look futuristic. I think aesthetically it should feel old, because the time of this. Earth has fallen. Actually, no one lives. The people that live on Earth can't live on the surface anymore, because the surface changes every 12 hours because of meteors. So at some point, someone like cracked the moon, and it threw off everything with the Earth. So people had to go to like Mars and all these different places to find life now to live there. But the people that do live on Earth that live have to live inside in these like secured areas, because the terrain is constantly changing by meteors. So it's funny. This is all that shit that needs to be unpacked in this series.
That's kind of what the plot of that movie we saw called Wandering Earth, where everybody had to move underground. It's a Chinese film.
Yeah,
I think they said it was like the highest like budget of Chinese films like ever. It shows it's about the Earth having to be propelled out of orbit.
It's insanely broad, but it's great. I loved it.
It's so far in the future that the sun is starting to consume the Earth, because that's physics. Like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's like we've reached that point in history. So all the nations on Earth agree to build jet turbines on one side to propel it out of orbit. But even though it's total sci-fi, there are like little elements of real life physics in it, because as they approach Jupiter, they start getting pulled into Jupiter's gravity field, and it becomes the whole like things that people just didn't think about. They're like, well, we're going to propel ourselves out of orbit. What about other gravitational forces that we have no numbers or data on?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
I wanted to I never got to finish. Like, John, I know you're still listening. The first Spike, there was a few like very, very important things to put into Spike as you act and play Spike Spiegel. The one I said was this like spiritual, like Native American thing, but also his kung fu and his mixed martial arts, and pretty much his entire fighting style is very unique to him, to Spike. No one else ever in the entire world of Cowboy Bebop looks or fights like Spike Spiegel. Vicious even like comes from the same syndicate, Red Dragons. Long story short, Vicious kills all the leaders of the Red Dragon Syndicate, and ends up trying to run it himself. But then eventually Spike catches up with him and fucking kills the guy, and dies himself. Actually, Spike has died a few times. and has lived to tell about it. Like one time he died in water, and that Native American that he always goes to get guidance actually pulled him and saved his life the one time.
Does he actually die, or is he just near death?
No, he dies, and then he comes back from death. There's a depiction of like you see Spike's eyes, and like you see what he sees, and then you live this like afterlife kind of thing with him. And then he's like basically says like I'm not ready to go yet, all this other stuff, and then
that's kind of like that scene in Deadpool 2.
Yeah, it's similar, but
he's like on the verge of it, and he's like, I can't. It's not my time.
Yeah, I think like there's a few like different examples of that. But the way the Spike fights, for one, is going to be a big thing that John has to pull off. Also, I don't know if you're a smoker, dude, but Spike is like a pack a day at least. So
you think they'll put that in there? Because I feel like Hollywood generally does not.
It would be interesting because I thought about that, and what I thought of is they'll probably introduce it, and then eventually he just says like I quit or something, and that's how they get rid of it. Because the fan service has to be there. I don't know at what capacity or what level the fan service will be, but these are like very, very obvious things that Spike has in his personality.
See, things like that don't have too much of like a social impact. I don't know. I don't like seeing that go. I mean, I don't know Cowboy Bebop that well to know if it's that iconic, but like, so for that sense, I get it that like it's bad to show people smoking because it makes kids think that's cool or whatever. But I feel like there's enough education on both sides nowadays, that like we're gonna see like a space cowboy smoking a cigarette. Like I think that's a different case than like seeing like like someone in real life. But so we saw Dumbo a couple of weeks ago, the quote unquote live action version of Dumbo, and they had the pink elephant scene, but Dumbo didn't get drunk or hot or whatever happened.
I asked someone and they said they didn't have that. I guess so they had that scene.
They kind of did it differently.
It became like a heightened reality. There might be magic involved kind of thing. Like it's something Dumbo witnesses happen during a show. And I can't tell if they were trying to make it, since he's like a baby, that his childlike wonder painted this picture, or if the circus was Danny DeVito was actually magical and made this thing happen. So the pink elephant, the song plays, a version of it at least, and the bubble elephants and stuff happen, but he doesn't get drunk to see it. He doesn't drink anything weird, which I get. Like, what's PC? You can't show babies drinking all this stuff, but it's like, I don't know. I don't think that would actually like make an infant go drink. It was just such like a innocent, iconic scene from the original Dumbo that if you're gonna do a shot for shot kind of like, it wasn't even a shot for shot, but like if you're gonna do these scenes that are iconic from the original movie, like just go for it, because that's what we remembered. They even did Baby of Mine in there, and it wasn't exactly the same. Like they, instead of the song kind of being sung by like a disembodied voice, and then Dumbo going to the cage and seeing the trailer and seeing his mom and stuff. Yeah, there was like a campfire, and it was like a woman who was a mermaid or something, like not a real mermaid, but like posing as a mermaid in the freak show, like was on a ukulele singing by a campfire, and that's why the soundtrack was happening. That was a nice like compromise of like, this could happen, and now here's a scene, and then they pan over and Dumbo's like seeing his mom for the last time and stuff.
Speaking of animals, they better put a Welsh Corgi in the series of Cowboy Bebop, or I'm not watching it.
So is the Corgi realistic, or is it kind of like a goofy side character?
In Cowboy Bebop, the Corgi was a part of an experiment, and they saved the dog because there's people after the dog, or they're after Edward because Edward has the dog, because Edward finds the dog. So this is a long story about that.
So this is going to be a CG Corgi.
Yeah.
It's a regular
Netflix
dog
show, so I don't think they'd have the.
There's just something in the dog's blood that they need they added to it.
But could a Corgi be so well trained that it could?
It's just a dog in the series. The dog doesn't talk in the series.
But I mean, do you need to know like any commands or anything?
Nope. It doesn't do anything special. It's literally the whole entire time it's either Jet is like yelling at the dog because it's in the way, or yelping, or it's hungry. Spike hates dogs until the very end of the series. He's like, oh, I see why you keep this dog around finally.
I thought of it because in Captain Marvel they had Goose, who was played by 3 or 4 cats, but also a CG cat, and they said the CG cat was not only for the Flurkin stuff, but also like sometimes the cat would need to hit marks. I guess, and they can't have like a real.
See that if they write it in a way that they need that in there.
They also said that Bree was extremely allergic to cats.
Yeah.
So they
but there was like certain things, like the cat had to like walk to person A, linger, go to person B, do something like, and they're like, you can't like train an actual cat to do that without looking like it's like
cats won't do that.
Going to food or something, you know?
I don't think they'll ever get this detailed, but Ein does. There's a storyline where they are after this like chess player, this interweb chess player. The dude's like super old. Long story short, he like set up a Sabotage, the company he used to work for 50 years ago. He set up this thing before he got fired. All this 50 years goes by, and his Sabotage trap opens up in the web and totally ruins the company, whatever. But Ein, the Welsh Corgi and Cowboy Bebop, pushes a piece forward at one point. And then in a movie, he moves a shogi piece on the board and actually helps Jet win the shogi game, which is a Japanese game, I'm guessing, shogi. I don't actually know if it's a real game. It's been depicted in a lot of different animes. But there is like so many things that they would have to like really like hone in on and take account of to get the fans in.
Is this the type of property that like the fans are going to crucify them for missing like the smallest detail?
Probably, because this is this is a cult classic.
So is this going to be another one kind of we mentioned in the last episode where like you should probably just not watch it as a Cowboy Bebop fan?
I'm still going to watch just because I just want to see things like that, but there will be like things I'm angry about. I already know. The one thing, people that are listening that don't know Cowboy Bebop, at no point in any of this is there hope for anyone, or is there any like positivity. Most of the entire series is very like drab, and like the characters are usually upset or angry or agitated, or there's never like I'm a hero, I can do this, somebody back me up. Like there's the 3 bounty hunters. It's a bounty hunter life, it's not like
it's kind of a
family kind of deal. Obviously like there's these energy type relationships, like when you have friends or if you're traveling with people, like there's a reason you're traveling with the people that you're traveling with. You may not even know them, but eventually you'll find out the reason that you all came to that one place at that one time. Well, that also applies with Cowboy Bebop.
Well, I know that, I didn't really watch Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
But the one Dragon Ball movie that people just unanimously hate.
Was it the new one?
Yeah.
The new Broly movie.
Yeah.
Oh, no. You two are talking about two completely different movies.
Which one's he's talking about?
I'm talking about like the live action Dragon Ball.
Oh, okay. So that was, what was it called? I don't know. Ruth Ann always yells about it. Evolution. That's what it was.
Our friend Ruth Ann's in that one.
Yeah. I just heard like constant complaint about
this was so bad.
Yeah, that's
was like not even close.
Urban legends are that they knew how bad it was while they were making it, because I guess there was a lot of things that they were promised that when they showed up for the first day of shooting, like it was very clear that it wasn't going to happen.
Oh, it's kind of like a band rider when you get to the concert.
Yeah, well, they made it seem like it was one notch away from being that original Fantastic Four movie that never released. It was just kind of like happening for the sake of happening,
which is weird because it's such a enormous, love.
Oh, Dragon Ball.
Yeah, Dragon Ball.
I can't believe. Yeah, they let this even come out.
Yeah, and so like I don't think that's going to happen to this next show.
Cowboy.
Yeah, I this is unanimously hated. I mean, this got
was
what,
a movie
2.6 out of 10.
This wasn't Dragon Ball Evolution was a movie too. This is Cowboy will be a series. The bar is up there though. They're gonna have a hard time like winning over a lot of people in this unless they like really like hone in on the essence of the show. So I don't know. I'm really interested in seeing how it pans out.
The reason I asked about like if it's fans are going to hate it is because it's kind of important, because we mentioned John Cho's being cast. So it's the first time that a major studio is going to be like, okay, we're going to take a shot at this.
Yeah.
We're going to put an Asian person in for an Asian person. If it flops, they're going to blame that.
Oh, I hope not.
So if all the Cowboy Bebop fans were like, this is shit, they're like, okay, we're never going to cast like a...
I'm hoping they just do a good job.
I don't think they'd do that.
They talk about it all the time though. They're like, if Ghostbusters with females doesn't work, then women movies don't work. I'm like, why?
Another thing that's like really going to bother me too is Cowboy Bebop is so intertwined with the jazz, and the music. Yeah. Just overall, music is like a very, very prominent thing about Cowboy Bebop, especially like the beginning and end songs like I said, they created a band for this shit, and everything from the cues to the music, the end credits, the beginning credits, everything is this one band. So it's going to be interesting to see like if they even make music a thing for this.
You figured it'd have to be if it was such a big part of the old one.
Yeah,
I mean, Netflix with Luke Cage. I mean, that thing's littered with amazing music.
I also don't know how big the fandom for Cowboy Bebop is.
There's a huge fandom because there's in downtown, no, in the west side, West LA somewhere. There's a theater that shows it like every week at like midnight or something.
Yeah, they play one of the movies.
Well, it's one of the movies because it's that theater plays Rocky Horror Picture Show on like a Friday, and then like Cowboy Bebop on a Saturday or reverse or something like that every week. So there's enough of a fandom for stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, I've never heard of Alita Battle Angel up until that movie came out.
Same here.
I've heard of Cowboy Bebop before.
Yeah.
How long ago was this? How long ago did it start?
This was like the 80s, wasn't it?
The 80s?
well,
It's like a kind of
I
like
think it
Ghibli
was-
thing to where like...
I think it was early or late 90s or early 2000s.
Late 90s?
Yeah. Let me see.
So I know that Ghibli stuff was all in the 80s. That stuff's beautiful and amazing. And they just released most of that stuff like overdubbed like what, 7 or 8 years ago?
Anime usually does take like a few years to get over to the States. Well, before the internet, it took a few years because they do like dubs and rights and all that stuff. It's just, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they handle it because, I mean, there have been a bunch of other previous like animes.
98, 99.
Really?
Crazy.
Wow.
It looks like it's been earlier than that.
I was gonna say, like, I mean, this is not a jab at the series. It looks like it was produced in the 80s.
Yeah, they definitely have their own style of anime.
Did you watch Nickelodeon when you were younger? Mm-hmm. Okay. I used to watch this show on Nickelodeon. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it was called Noozles.
Oh yeah, Noozles.
But I've never seen it actually put on DVD or anything recently, but it's a series, and I can't remember who made it, but you know, obviously it's an anime that they dubbed for us. In the earlier days of Nickelodeon, they took stuff and dubbed it in here and sent it over here because they didn't have anything of their own yet. It was before like, you know, Ren and Stimpy. But the show was like, looked like it was a little kid's show at first, and you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of fun, you know, as a little kid. And then it started getting dark to where like her grandpa died, and he had sent the grandma this koala bear. And like, oh, okay. And so she like rubs her nose against the koala bear's nose, and it wakes the koala bear up.
I remember that.
And they can go to the other koala bear world. They can draw like a circle in the air and go through the circle in the other dimension. And you're like, oh, yay, it's fun. Now they can go play in the other dimension and whatnot. And koala bears and stuff in the other dimension hate humans.
Yeah, they're all like disgruntled.
Yeah, exactly. And so eventually it comes up to where like the grandfather is sucked in this part of the universe that like you cannot go in or you will die, but his like soul is still there, and so they can still talk to him, and the universes are colliding, and it's like this little kids show that was it's kind of cutesy, and then
Ant-Man flies
super dark. Yeah, no, seriously, it was like that though, where like he's stuck here and like you
Quantum
can't come
realm.
here. Yeah, it gets really creepy.
It's like stuff when we were kids, like was dark. I don't know what happened because things were dark. Like remember Ghost Rider? It was like a PBS
Ghost
show.
Rider.
So, like the premise of that, it was the soul of a slave that died, that was like entrapped in a book because he was one of the only African American people that could read, and that's why he was teaching kids how to read. It was like, what a dark subplot for such a lighthearted series.
I do feel like that way, especially. I feel like Walt Disney went a little too far. In the 80s, you can go back and find like these movies that you'd never hear of today. Even Escape to Witch Mountain is kind of scary. But like there's other movies that are like downright almost horror movies in the 80s that Disney did.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Yeah, it creeped me out when I was little.
That was like, even as an adult, you're watching it like, I mean, it's kind of fun loving, but there's like a dark magic happening in it and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
My kids love it now, but
Yeah.
I remember when I was being little, that or what's the other one that's like that one? Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Those ones, I don't know why they creep me out, but they did.
or even
It's been too long.
even
for
like
me.
the Renaissance era of Disney, like with Little Mermaid and stuff. Like when Ariel gets her voice taken away, that's like a terrifying scene.
Yeah.
Like Ursula's she eats like sentient characters.
Yeah.
Souls.
Like when it like opens up with her, you see her like talk to like a character and then bite its head, like
She's
eat
like
it.
the Shang Tsung of the ocean,
Well, no, remember
true.
she had those little shrimps and it's like please, and you just
and she turned them into that.
oh,
those
that's right,
shrimps.
yeah.
She's evil.
Yeah, Disney used to be a lot darker.
Or even Beauty and the Beast. like Beast getting injured and all that stuff. Like,
but then again, like we have, like I don't know, I know it's not Disney necessarily, but it's like Pixar where you have like Up, where they're like the first like 10 minutes of the movie is like his wife dies, and you're like, oh.
And it's funny because like I don't know if you've for some reason never seen Up. Like Vince had only seen Up recently on his birthday this last year. And it's like they had just done such a good job telling a love story within 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. They were like, because it's not just his wife dies. It's like they planned on going adventures together. They wanted to have kids. Like they got none of those things.
Yeah.
They were actually in love. You got this feeling that they're actually in love and it wasn't like a fling. And like, how can you tell all that in 10 minutes? And sometimes people get 3 hours and can't tell half that story.
True that.
But anyway, you are excited for Cowboy Bebop, and I'm actually excited to watch it too.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. Does it say when it's going to come out?
It's probably going to be a while because if they just announced the cast, they're not even in like filming or like I wonder if there's like scripting happening yet or if they're doing that after the fact. I don't know how series work.
I'm not too stoked on who's playing Jet Black. For one, he wasn't black, but I guess it doesn't matter.
Did you see Luke Cage second season? Because he's the bad guy in it.
Oh yeah, I did. I think all these actors are highly capable of knocking it out of the park, or at least doing a good job, But I don't know. First off, he doesn't look like Jet Black.
Is the other guy an Asian as well? Jet Black.
Jet is not Asian. I mean, I guess they're all supposed to be Asian. Mm-hmm. But he's more like you don't really know. Mm-hmm. I think he actually was born on Mars.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I think Spike was born on Mars too. But he's always been like of Asian descent, especially because of his history and everything. But Vicious, like they make Vicious a white dude here too, and like so that's gonna be.
Was he Japanese in the?
He was kind of just like Spike, yeah.
But I mean,
looked very similar except for the hair. Vicious had blonde hair. And Spike had like
if he's blonde, unless it was like I don't know, the cosmetic thing or whatever. I don't know about this since it's a space kind of opera thing.
They do like a white version.
Usually like hair color and like eyes shape. Yeah. Like eye shape has to do with like implied ethnicity in anime. Yeah. Like when it's like goofy anime, generally characters with like gigantic eyes, like round eyes, are supposed to be like Western.
I'm digging this Faye Valentine though. I think she's gonna end up doing a good job. You want to see what Vicious looks like? You can pull up a photo of Vicious.
I was gonna say, like, from the anime that I have seen, I can't tell nationalities. I feel like they're almost downplayed. I don't know if they did it on purpose. Even in that one show I was talking about earlier, the Noozles show, like it looks like the kids are white, I think, in it. But it's obviously like made in Japan.
So like the last
or Jubilee, like Jubilee doesn't look like she's.
Well, Jubilee's supposed to be like usually like a mixed things like they usually imply. I've known. I don't know deep history in the X-Men comics, but the last controversy they had in like an anime to live action was Ghost in the Shell. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what Scarlett Johansson was supposed to play, like a real.
Well, I don't have like a deep knowledge of Ghost in the Shell, but I have seen the movie and the original animated movie and stuff. She's supposed to be Japanese. That's very clear, like from the name and her whole background in the movie and stuff. It is a little unclear if she's Japanese because that's the culture that created the show. Kind of like. We created the Avengers, so Black Widow's a white lady. Like it's just kind of built into like culture or whatever. So it's not intentional. Like that's important. Like in my head, Black Widow could be an Asian woman or a black woman or something and fulfill a very similar kind of role. Kind of Nick Fury, could swap things. It's something that was like a product of like the culture that created it as a default. So it was kind of unclear if like it goes to the shelf if that was like an intention, like it's important that she's Japanese, or if just because she was created by a Japanese like creator or team or whatever. The big controversy in the movie that really like put salt in the wound for Scarlett Johansson being that character was that they made it a specific plot point that was not in. I mean, it was kind of important, but they added a plot point in the movie that she is Japanese, but she was upgraded to the supreme species, which was a white woman. That's the plot of the movie. She's born Japanese. They ripped her brain out of her body to put her into a white person's body as an upgrade, and that's the.
Can I upgrade to Scarlett Johansson?
But it's not just her. They also take a Japanese guy, take his brain out, and upgrade him to a white guy. The whole premise of the movie is everyone Asian is being taken by this evil syndicate and being upgraded to white people. That was the big controversy of the movie. It was like, so it wasn't just that they had replaced like these Because I think in Japan they actually interviewed people and they're like, oh, we like Scarlett Johansson. That's kind of cool. Then the movie comes out and they're like, why is this a plot point? It's such a weirdly like just twist the knife kind of like.
They did that in Altered Carbon too, huh?
A little bit.
With the male character.
But at least with that, it was kind of like you can keep changing. Scarlett Johansson's character in Ghost in the Shell, like she doesn't have an option. She's devastated by the end of the movie when she finds out all this stuff because she meets her mother. Like when that scene happened, it was like, I don't know how I feel about this because it is the bad guy that does it in the movie. But who wrote this to make it a plot point? It was weird. It was like enough of a concession to like accept. Okay, cool. Okay, so Scarlett Johansson, I get it. We need this thing. But then they were like, so in this world, it's just generally accepted that everyone aspires to be a Caucasian person. It's like, what a weird message.
And that's outside of the actual cartoon or whatever?
When I watched the original cartoon movie, I don't remember that being a point. She gets transferred to different bodies because that's one of the things. Is like you can be put into a cyborg thing.
Well, okay,
but the body looks kind of like
it was
ethnic. Like you can't really tell.
It's just this is another person.
Well, it's another thing with the cartoons where I don't feel like,
and they didn't make it a big point. Like in the original animated movie, the thing she was devastated by was that she was taken from her original identity to something else, But in the movie, they added the thing that's like, oh no, it's like you're like everybody aspires to be Caucasian, so that's why we did this to you. It was like, why was that detail added? Like it literally
they try to do it as kind of like a point on purpose. Like this is how we feel as white people are more important if you're white or something.
I guess I don't know if I'm just like
I don't know who directed it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm just being too critical of it. But if that was the point, I would really wanted them to drive it home a lot more.
Yeah, a little better.
Like I wanted them to have made it like a huge deal. Like she's devastated by it, but it didn't seem like a political like talking point to me.
Yeah.
It just kind of seemed like a plot point they put in to justify having like a blonde woman like play like this character and stuff. I don't know if that was like a studio decision. Maybe the person who wrote the screenplay was like, that doesn't definitely.
Well, she was a huge actress, still is a huge actress.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean
like,
the plot point. I don't know if like they just were like, listen, we have a successful animated movie. Let's do a shot for shot, which they pretty much did. Like you can take shots of the Ghost in the Shell movie and the animated, and it's almost same scene. Sometimes they arrive to the scene in different ways.
I was going to actually bring that up because this, in reference to Cowboy Bebop, take notes, guys, because Ghost in the Shell did it perfectly.
Like visually, there's these moments that happen like that. So it's clear that they pretty much took like a shot for shot from the original movie. I don't know if it was like some studio exec is like, listen, we need to justify having a white woman in this, like or
yeah,
not.
Maybe I don't know.
Just have her in there. It's fine. Like I mean, some people are gonna still complain about it.
Yeah.
But it'll just be what it is.
Well, especially if you're swapping bodies out like that all the time, because I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
If you're swapping bodies out, I don't feel like it's that big of a stretch, you know?
It was like a one level of like, it's kind of annoying, but sure, they need to sell tickets.
Yeah.
But then when you saw the movie and then they made that like the twist,
made that a plot point.
I was like, oh my God. Like, it's kind of like when someone says something offensive and they just keep digging the hole when they're with you. And you're like, you know what, dude? You can just like stop. It doesn't even have to be a racial thing. Like if somebody just says something to you, they're like, that's not cool. But then they keep going to try they try to backpedal, but they just keep like digging deeper. You're like, it'd be better if you just stopped now. We just kept like,
I don't know how successful that movie ended up being.
It was a huge flop.
Yeah. But the live action adaptation was perfect to me. Like
it was gorgeous.
Like I didn't even care about anything else except for how true to the original movies and series it was. I just appreciated that more than any other aspect of that movie.
So like I guess in like kind of a parallel, if they do Cowboy Bebop and this character with Vicious that we're looking at now, if they go out of their way to point out that he's Caucasian for some reason, I don't even know the series. I just feel like that'd be a weird call out. If they're gonna cast that, they should just own it and do it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to just run with it. Why would you?
The other
the guy looks white to me. I mean, he's obviously very pale, but I don't know. He has white hair, obviously.
He looks kind of white, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess
know.
I get what you mean,
Vince. I guess you're kind of right though. Like he's just another one of those like racially ambiguous. Like
you can't really tell.
He's Martian.
He just looks like an anime character to me. Yeah. Another thing, Spike is like 6'2". The dude is tall.
Yeah.
Like in all the illustrations, he's always the tallest person So I don't know if John Cho's 6'2",
I actually
but
don't know how tall John Cho is.
a big part of his fighting style is his legs, and when he swings his legs out to kick and everything, you really get an idea of how big he is, how tall he is, lengthy.
John Cho is 5'10". He's shorter than me. So, well, that'll be interesting.
A lot of low angles, guys.
Exactly.
But I'm looking at the Cowboy Bebop IMDb, so I'm seeing if nope, those were the only 4 listed. Okay, well there you go.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, guys. What else we got on the list?
Yeah, we better get going, and we got a ton of stuff that
was almost an entire episode of Cowboy Bebop.
That's truth. Like Warner Brothers seems to be like, oh yeah, Shazam, we did the right thing this time. Oh, and they've already greenlit Shazam 2, which
nice.
I thought was going to be the Black Adam, like he was going to be introduced in there, but apparently Black Adam is having his own solo movie first.
No way.
Which is why I think they didn't have.
That's going to be connected.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
Well, it has to be. Yeah.
Has to be.
I saw something that The Rock had like either tweeted or an interview or something about that, because I think Dwayne Johnson's one of the producers.
He is one of the producers. I read that too.
So I think that was like kind of like the deal. Like they were like crossing their fingers that Shazam was going to do like really well, and then Black Adam was going to be like the follow up. And
yeah.
So, but that kind of is a good strategy. It's a way of doing your own universe, kind of. So everybody's getting solo movies, but it's still kind of connected without worrying about being connected.
I'm not a fan of doing bad guy origin stories. When they had Magneto, they were talking about doing it. They're doing a Joker one. I'm not excited about. It doesn't.
Black Adam maybe has enough to fill a movie. I can't.
If they can find like
Dwayne The Rock Johnson has enough to fill a movie, but I don't know about Black Adam.
It works really well having The Rock too, because he was also the Scorpion King.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
If they can find like a part of his personality that could be the style of the movie that's different than Shazam, I think that'll really work, because Shazam really caught me by surprise for all the reasons we talked about right after the movie came out.
Yeah.
I didn't know too much about the character. When I found out everything about it, it was ridiculous. Kind of like Hellboy and Aquaman. I'm like, sure, we're here. It's like let's just be out here for the ride. Like, so if they can find that thing, because Shazam had a very like distinct style that was familiar but different. If they can do that for Black Adam, 'cause I don't know anything about Black Adam.
I think they can. I mean, like, I feel like it's gonna be like a Scorpion King thing, to where like, hey, this is really popular. Let's make another movie about it. And that was obviously kind of flopped. But
see, I've never actually seen things of him by himself. He's always just like popped in a Shazam.
Yeah,
thing
it's always been him and Shazam
with Justice League, or like it's Superman and Shazam are like trying to fight off whatever villain, and Black Adam shows up. And so I've never actually like I don't really know a lot about Black Adam.
That's the challenge for whoever's writing the screenplay, or whoever wrote the screenplay. Like, if you're a good writer, you can figure it out. Like Shazam, I don't know who wrote it, but the guy who directed it was like a YouTube filmmaker.
Yeah,
like he used to make YouTube movies, and then he did a short film, Lights Out. Then he did horror movies, and then he did Shazam. Like he found like a voice for it. So if you can do that,
I mean, yeah, if you can. I don't feel like Warner Brothers does that, though. I feel like they just go, money. We can make some more over here. Let's try to do this or that, you know?
If it's the same team making Black Adam, I'm going to give it a shot, because I didn't expect to like Shazam that much.
Yeah.
So they might be onto something.
I'll definitely go see it, but I'm not thinking it's going to do what they're thinking it's going to do. I'm
so curious to see how they're going to take this storyline. Where they're going to take it. Is it going to start with like Billy Batson and all the you know, kids like at the house? I don't think they're going to have anybody
in it. That's because it's going to be
almost. I thought Shazam 2 is greenlit to be.
Shazam 2 is going to happen, but I'm talking about Black Adam.
Oh, his own
solo movie.
I thought that Shazam was going to make cameos in Black Adam's movie. That's what I heard. I don't know. I didn't. Read anything official
I would
about
hope so. You know, even if they're not on the same timelines. Like if it shoots over to show like Shazam's doing this right now, and then it shoots back, and like Black Adam's kind of like doing something to where you can tell later on that's going to converge at some point. You know, I could see that happening.
But it's just be so hard though, because Black Adam like happened in the past, obviously, like way in the past. And so where's he been this entire time? I know that he's been banished, like probably somewhere across the universe or something.
Yeah.
But
or what if they take like a Cloak and Dagger? You still haven't seen that?
The new one?
Cloak and Dagger, like the first season.
I saw the first season.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what if they take like a Cloak and Dagger? I know Cloak and Dagger is Marvel, but what if they take that kind of approach where it's like a few minutes of just like explosion, radiation. Now they got superpowers. Okay, now let's get to the story. Or even as much as I hate to admit this, X-Men Apocalypse. Where they kind of set up his like Egyptian origin for like 5 or 10 minutes and then just skip ahead, present day.
Yeah, but like then that wouldn't be a solo film, I feel. Like it seems to be like it's an origin film. So like you're not gonna have any of that Shazam stuff until maybe the very end. I don't feel like it's gonna
I wonder what comes out first, Black Adam or Shazam 2?
Black Adam's coming out first.
Okay.
I feel like he would be in the Shazam 2 movie.
Well, because it would make more sense, like, because I've seen Marvel do this too, like with Black Panther, we first see him in a Captain America movie.
Yeah.
But see, even Black Panther, they kind of did an origin movie, but not really, because was it Civil War he appeared in first?
Yeah, he did Civil War.
They somebody even asked him like, "Where'd you come from?" He's like, "I don't care." Like,
like they kind of like graze over it, but you understood.
Well,
like
they didn't really. They grazed over it, but the way he said it, like his delivery of that, told you everything you need to know about that character.
So maybe if these movies came out in reverse, maybe they could do something like that.
Or even when speaking of Hellboy, they pretty much do his origin because all of us have seen the original Hellboy movies and stuff. They kind of did his origin in like 3 minutes, and then it was like, and now he's 30, and then they just moved on from there. So I don't know.
But it would have to be then after the first Shazam movie, so it'd be like and stuff way back then, and hey, now here we're today, which would make it almost a Shazam 2.
If they find an angle, I don't know. I like Shazam a lot. I don't know if it's going to go down in like the histories. Like
I think it'll be
greatest.
the start of the new like DC like EU if they try to go for that. Because
it's too early for me to tell.
Yeah, it's too early. It could be a one-off if they don't try to go in that direction.
Yeah.
But I feel like they kind of get it a little bit. Like, ooh, maybe we should work on this.
I guess I
Black Adam and then Shazam 2 end up being really good, then they got something on their hands.
Yeah.
I guess I just kind of gauge it off of like I didn't have the same kind of feeling I did after seeing Iron Man. After seeing Iron Man, I was like, oh my God, like Marvel's figured it out. We've settled for the Venoms.
Yeah.
Those types of movies, like not the character, but like those kind of cash grab movies. Like, but when Iron Man came out, like they fucking figured it out.
Yep.
Like they figured this out, and then like here we are, 22 movies later, and they've still figured it out. Like even at their worst,
Warner Brothers just I don't feel like they don't figure it out. In my personal experience, from what I've read, from what I've seen, what I've gathered, I feel like they base their moves solely. And you know that corporations are going to do that. They're going to base their moves on money. But I feel like they base their moves solely on money when they're working in like an artistic environment.
that's what I'm saying is like I didn't get that tingly feeling in Shazam where like, oh, they figured it out.
All right.
I feel like that they made a good movie and they figured out this character, but I don't think they figured out like an infrastructure for
for going
a
forward.
world or a series or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this was a fun movie. I don't see it expanding too much from beyond this, like
it's too early to tell
if
what's
they
gonna
did
happen.
go like forward and continued stuff like Shazam, I feel like it could. But you never know. I mean, I know that this Joker movie has been worked on since before this Shazam came out, but from what I've seen, I'm just not a big fan. I feel like with the Black Adam idea, it's less of a Black Adam movie and more of a Rock movie. They're like, hey, he is like one of the biggest actors.
I'm afraid
right
of
now.
that. I am afraid of that. Like Black Adam just turning into a Rock movie.
Yeah, it's just a Rock. He's awesome.
We
love him.
I love The Rock.
Yeah.
And I've been a huge fan for a long, long time. But there are just things that end up like being this like stigma kind of Rock movies.
So, like, one of the reasons I'm so frustrated with, like, WB and the DC stuff is, like, the DC stuff, for the majority of it, is, like, objectively, like, so inferior to, like, a lot of other superhero stuff that's out. And you're right, there's a lot of cash grab stuff. But we have a couple friends that work over at Warner Brothers, and we talk to them, and it's an ongoing joke. Anytime we do a sponsored video with WB or we're around friends of WB, we're like, do DC better. And the reason that's a kind of a joke and also like it hurts so much is because we know for a fact from firsthand experience that that Warner Brothers has like a stable of like really great writers. And like Crazy Rich Asians showed that. And soon everyone will see that Blinded by the Light has like fucking like on point writing. And there's other movies too. There's just two that came to mind because there's the two that WB did that like blew my mind. But they're not accessing them for the DC, with the exception of like Patty Jenkins, who did Wonder Woman. We got to meet her at YouTube before Wonder Woman came out and stuff, and she kind of made it a point of like, we need to separate ourselves from whatever this has been happening.
Yeah.
From DC, and like she understood like I don't even say nuances of the character, because I feel like the things that she fought for from WB to put into the Wonder Woman movie were like huge character points.
Yeah.
She's like, you have to actively work to ruin Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, because that's the holy trinity of superheroes. For decades.
Yeah. Okay. I saw that there's just going to be a Snake Eyes origin story movie or a Snake Eyes movie from G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe? Really?
Yes. And we got
That's
a Morbius.
insane. What?
Like one of Spider-Man's like villains is
Wait,
Morbius.
Morbius? Yeah.
He's gonna get his own
the
movie?
vampire?
Yeah, it's been for a long time. They already have set photos from it. Jared Leto is in Morbius, and like, so what are we gonna do with this? There's obviously not gonna be any Spider-Man involved in it.
Wait.
So like, for what reason do we have Morbius? It's the only reason, in my opinion, is Sony has these characters. They want to use
gonna
them,
do 'em.
and then they want to make some money off
Is
of them.
Jared Leto going to be the Joker?
Yeah,
Oh,
Joker's in
no,
DC.
DC.
Jared Leto is Morbius. He's the
He's
a
gonna be
vampire.
Morbius.
Yeah.
Wow.
In Marvel.
These actors are going to be like so confusing now with these different.
Yeah.
Well, we got a bunch of them that are double dipping that are both in DC and Marvel now.
Yeah. Wait, so Morbius, if he's a vampire, you know what would be, I'm not saying this would justify making it, but it would make it a little bit better. It'd be interesting if they decided to go try to do like a horror movie.
That'd be great.
You
You
know?
know what's funny too is they made Morbius like super like TV or friendly to kids because instead of
yeah.
like biting to suck
had
the
the
plasma, he
hands.
has like the things on his hands.
Yeah, in the cartoon, they're like, he's like plasma, and he
Yeah.
like puts the hands on people's face. He has a little suction cup.
Sucks the plasma.
Like, you know,
It's like easier for kids to digest
Exactly.
instead of like, I'm going to bite your neck.
Now, Snake Eyes, I'm going to put this out there. I didn't love the G.I. Joe movies. Actually, I like the G.I. Joe movies, not as G.I. Joe movies, just like action movies.
Yeah.
They were great. They didn't feel like G.I. Joe to me, with the exception of Snake Eyes and
Storm
Shadow.
Yeah.
With the exception of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, it didn't feel like a G.I. Joe movie to me. So if they're doing like that Snake Eyes, maybe
it's not strong enough of a character to write on that.
really.
There's a lot of history on Snake Eyes though, and about his like clan and where he comes from and the story behind how he lost
He's a
his vision.
quiet dude, right?
kind of.
How are you gonna do a movie about like a guy that's generally like very
Quiet.
reserved and quiet?
So is this going to be WB as well, or like who's doing this one?
Who owns?
So
I think maybe Universal.
okay, because the reason I give a little bit of hope for this is Snake Eyes is very similar to the ninjas in Mortal Kombat, and John Tobias wrote like a lot of the lore for the ninjas in Mortal Kombat, and even though they're just palette swaps of each other, he wrote like an incredibly like nuanced storyline for those guys that like I remember like the back of my hand to this day. If they can get writers like that, because like in Mortal Kombat up until the recent series, like Scorpion didn't speak either because he was like a skeleton, you know, and stuff. So they wrote like interesting things for it, but it just happens. It all kind of goes around the talent of the writers, like what they're able to like do, you know.
I'll tell you one thing. Out of all of the G.I. Joes, Snake Eyes is the most mysterious. So I can see how they would pick him to do the movie. Plus, he was like the highest selling toy of all the G.I.
might
Joes.
be.
Wait,
One.
I'm reading this article and now I'm losing faith. Okay, because it says it's going to be directed by the guy who directed Divergent, Insurgent, and Allegiant. So that's already a red flag, because it wasn't that the series that like failed so bad that they almost made it a TV movie.
I watched Divergent. I don't remember if I saw the other two.
Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think this was starring the girl that was in Fault in Our Stars, I think.
I believe so.
Okay, so this was supposed to be as big as Twilight, or not Twilight, Hunger Games.
Yeah.
The first movie did okay, and I guess the second movie like flopped, and then they decided to go to like a made-for-TV movie, and then none of the actors were like, we didn't sign up for that, and then they tried to like adapt it into like a series for TV, and then everybody just like jumped ship, and they just never finished it.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering.
I was gonna say I don't think that they released the last one, did they?
They never. I don't think they ever finished any of the series. So like that does not give me good feelings for that guy directing a Snake Eyes movie.
Well, the director, I don't feel like always should take the blame for that, but like, yeah.
I mean, that's three big like marks against you. You know, like,
Yeah.
You like killed a series.
You murdered a
Now,
hero.
not to say that I didn't read the books, but for all my friends that read like those dystopian teen novels and stuff, I feel like that genre is kind of a little bit of a low bar anyway. And then they said like the Divergent series was like the worst of them. I'm like, that's not good. Because it's
was there more things? Or should we wrap it up?
Did you see that there were some Endgame tickets that sold for $15,000 a piece?
Was it a piece or a pair?
Yeah, I guess they're 2 tickets.
What, okay, for what? Opening day?
Opening day? Yeah. For
no way.
3:40 p.m. AMC dine-in tickets.
I would not pay $10,000, almost $10,000.
I like this first listing, $9,199, then $53 in shipping.
Oh my gosh!
What is or 54? Wait,
no, am I reading that wrong?
$4. Okay, I'm just reading $4.
Why would you? It'd just be free shipping at that point.
Why? It's just funny. It's like I want to get my $4.
Exactly.
You pay for shipping. I'm just giving you $10,000. That's all.
I feel like New York should have plenty of showings.
I don't know though, man. You go look now. I mean, from what you've told me, they've added some showings, but like within that day, man, it was already gone. Most of the stuff from that day.
Yeah.
It's insane.
No, I was fighting. I fought for 6 hours to get our tickets.
Is this a world record for pre-sales?
Yeah. It's the biggest pre-sale ever. And I remember, didn't we talk about this a couple podcasts ago? I was like, maybe we could scalp some tickets. It's like people are freaking scalping.
For insane amounts. I mean, I could buy a used car for those amounts.
You know what though? I'm not mad about it because one of my greatest joys is I love seeing people love things. So like, for example, I don't understand Dungeons and Dragons at all.
Yeah.
But I have a couple friends that I used to like hang out with when I was on tour, like when I'd stop through their city, and I watched them play, and I was genuinely like, I loved how happy they were in that, and that goes for anything else. Like when people talk about other things, like when Vince talks about Cowboy Bebop, I don't know anything about it. Like, I love that he loves it. Like, and
when you see someone that excited about something, you're like, I'm excited too. Maybe I do want to watch this.
I see. I don't have that connection necessarily. Sometimes I'm like, that's good for you. Like, I don't want to invest my time in learning D&D. But like, I love the enthusiasm for it.
It just makes you happy that makes that person happy.
Other people happy.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like a genuine human trait, or just a general human trait. But that's not true at all. People don't like to see like other people happy at stuff. Like I've understood it like firsthand, but also with other people. I'm like, why don't you just let them enjoy that? Or like when I get like on
I've never seen you as excited about Mortal Kombat for anything else.
But see, that's the thing is like I'll start talking about it and then like get immediately squashed on stuff.
That's like I guess none of our friends are like Mortal Kombat fans because I don't really know a lot about it, but like I don't put anyone down because they like Mortal Kombat though either.
Yeah, unless it's hurting somebody else, just like let people like things. Like
I talked to some lady at like my kid's softball game about it. She's like, oh my gosh, I don't understand why anyone would ever do that. And I was like, well, it's opening day. You don't want to get spoiled. You really love it. You got the money.
Endgame,
And I'm like, and she's like, I just don't understand it. I was like, oh,
it's not for you to understand.
I do because I'm like, I don't, for one, I don't want to be spoiled. For one, I want to be the first person. Like, I remember when the tickets were going down, there was a bunch of tickets in that like 20-something movie marathon.
Oh,
they have one of those here in LA, and there's a bunch of movie things in there. And I was like, okay, this is $200 a piece. If things go south here in the next couple hours and I can't get tickets, would I be willing to pay $200? Right. And I might have been if I had it. Like if I had the money, I might be like, whatever. I just won't show up for the first 20 movies. So
that's 300 tacos.
I mean, I paid a lot of money to take my kids to go to Wrigley Field. When to see the Cubs. That's a lot. I paid like $1,500 last year to do that. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, some people that might be a lot, not be a lot, but
that's like 7 cheesesteaks.
Yeah, from Gino's shipped here.
Hey, don't tease me. No, just playing.
But the thing is, like, I don't know. It's a good example because, like, with Endgame, like, I'm just that excited. I'm not gonna like. If we didn't get tickets that day, I would be disappointed. But I wouldn't go like postal or anything.
I don't want to sit in the masses of people. Like,
but I did like one of the things I wanted to go opening night, not only to see it early, not get spoiled. I love the energy in the LA crowd opening night for movies like that. When we went to see Infinity War and we were with our friend Ruth Ann and Boss Level 8, but specifically Ruth Ann is very energetic. I was a little smashed and super excited for the movie. Like we were like anybody but Americans watching soccer, and we weren't out of place. Like we were loud and screaming and stuff, but other
so
people
much
were
that-
just as excited, you know?
Yeah, so much that I would miss things. Thankfully, I was able to watch that movie 7 times.
Yeah.
But I had to see it again, like the next day, because there's so many things I missed. And that's kind of what I don't like about having like a packed theater. I dig the energy. I totally like, I enjoy that people are enjoying, but shut the fuck up.
I
wanna
think
hear
I
the movie.
enjoyed it better. Not that I don't enjoy it now, but I think I enjoyed it better when it was midnight showings. You know what I'm saying?
When it was actually midnight.
When it was actually midnight, because then you'd get the people that I'm sure like we're gonna still get those people coming to like these crazy showings that are like all day long on that day. But like on midnight showings of I think one of the last things that had midnight was Batman Return, Dark Knight Returns, maybe something like that. I feel like people that would come out, like we'd have great conversations waiting in line because you'd have to come because they didn't have to pick your seats then. You'd have to come wait in line forever and just be like, hey, we're gonna get our seats, but you come, we show up at 9 or 10 and wait till midnight.
Vince and I saw Captain Marvel. We were in Orlando. Even then, I didn't even think of this, but we scored tickets at Disneyland basically, and I totally forgot that it's like Marvel Disneyland, like everything was decked out. There was like a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters and stuff. Then when we got in the theater, it was not quite as high level of energy as Infinity War, but really close. When the end credits stuff happened, the girl next to me, like actually the row of girls next to me, screamed like Freddy Krueger just jumped on screen. Yeah. Like, and I love that. I mean, I know Vince doesn't like that. Like,
well, because I missed what she said at the end, and then thankfully we have A-list, so we can see this $25 to $27 movie as many times as we want.
I guess the difference though is like I heard what she said, and so did the people next to me. So I don't think we missed things. We were just.
I'm glad y'all didn't miss. I was like, "What did she say?" And you were like, "She said this." And like, how did anyone fucking hear that?
Because like we're so involved, like I still saw like every like little detail of the movie. Like I was so like in it, like, and it wasn't like there's a difference between like where were we seeing? I forget, was it Dumbo? And someone was like having a phone call in the back row. I was like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm kind of like people like watching, because it's like when people are watching sports, people don't yell at each other like I missed it because you were cheering and stuff. I love the energy of like, yeah, like this is happening, like we're in it. Like,
well, there's generally no dialogue in sports
though,
but there is. There's people talking through the entire thing.
Yeah,
that's
but it's
not
like what you're paying
part.
attention to. What you're paying attention to is you're reading whatever's being happening on the game. Like
I don't see it that way. I like it, when I get there, like people are like listening to announcers or like watching the jumbotron and stuff. It's the same thing. Like if you enjoy sports, then let people enjoy movies. Like that's my thing. Like let people love the movies. Like I love it. So that was part of the thing about getting the Endgame tickets at opening night. It's like I know there's not going to be another opening night with that energy.
Yeah.
And I want to be part of that.
Just like a little side note, I do kind of feel bad for the person that can't afford like to go see it again, or whatever, or has to wait till it's like on television.
Yeah.
And it was too loud or something like that, or there was someone like texting or calling on the phone or something. You totally miss a
the texting,
big point.
The texting and calling on the phone, that's a whole other issue. But if you don't
shouting, or
if you don't want like the energies of like the crowd, then go 2 weeks later. Like this is the easiest thing.
I think that's why I don't mind about like waiting. Like I don't really care about like opening day, anything like that. Like
so, Vince's tickets for sale.
Yeah,
everybody wants it.
Yeah, if you guys want my ticket,
I got an extra one right now. But I don't think I can sell it because I bought
mine.
4 and then I bought 2 and they're like online. So I'm like I don't think I can split them.
I'm cool with yelling and screaming and opening night for Endgame because I got A-list, y'all, so I can see it as many times as I effing want to afterward.
Apparently, Endgame's going to have Stan Lee's last cameo because Russo's thinks that he wasn't well enough to film the cameo for Far From Home.
Which is a really poetic ending.
Yeah, I think it's proper.
It was interesting what they were saying about his cameo in Captain Marvel. He couldn't he was saying the lines, but he was so like low energy, like wasn't able to say it in order for the microphone to capture it.
Yeah,
that they had just like added lines in from Mallrats.
They called Kevin Smith to like take his alternate takes from Mallrats.
Oh, crazy!
That was the audio they used.
Oh, I didn't know.
So Kevin said that he didn't have it, but Universal had it. So at some point, this is how much everybody loves Stan Lee, is that Disney and Universal came to an agreement to make the cameo happen. So they were able to dig up the archival alternate takes of that line so they could have him say it a few times.
That's crazy. I used to do stuff that was kind of like Guitar Hero kind of things for like a app, web app, and like they just basically like, here, log in here and go to this place where they have all the stuff, and you can, here's a bunch of hard drives with the bass and the guitar and all the stuff of these acapellas stems of these famous songs.
The technical side I know is like pretty simple nowadays, but it's the fact that they just had an agreement about a multi-million-dollar movie like that, like. Sure, we're not going to ask for 50% of the profits of it.
Kind of wonder what Stan, like, if he wasn't as well for Captain Marvel, like, I wonder what's going to be like in this one.
It's probably pretty similar because I was under the understanding that they did them all like at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And they implied, this might not be true, but they implied that like all of it was like offset, like maybe like at his home or somewhere where they green screen stuff or something, like where he didn't have to like travel far to do it, but I don't know. Only the people who did it know. So.
Yeah.
What a stream.
I know.
What a pod stream cast thing.
Ugh. We should wrap up. I know we got more to talk, but we can save it for next week.
Yeah.
After all the Endgame stuff and stuff, you guys.
If all goes well, the next thing you'll hear from us is our thoughts on Endgame.
Man. And Rod's MK11 feedback after the game.
My head is going to explode that week because there's a 3-day gap between Endgame and Mortal Kombat releases. I don't know who decided that would be. I mean, I'm grateful, but holy crap, that's a lot of. That's like having like Christmas 3 days in a row, as a kid or something. That's amazing. But like so overload. Mortal Kombat's 25 years in the making for me, and then Endgame is like 22 movies in the making.
Yeah,
and my entire adulthood. Like, what? How did that timing work?
Yeah, this is an epic time for 90s kids overall, I think.
Or even, I'm 37. People like in their 20s are like, oh, I remember when I was 10 years old and I saw this. Like, oh, dang.
Like, I'm gonna have to explain to my 5-year-old niece someday the importance of the MCU, like of Iron Man.
It's crazy how many movies. Like, I remember when I went into college, we had like this box set of Bond movies, and it was like maybe 20 at the time. I think there's 25 now or 26, and we were watching like one a week. Like, we got as many Bond movies within 10 years as they had within 30.
Yeah.
When that was a really popular series. So
yeah, I hope comics stay relevant in the future. I know it's kind of not what we're talking about right now.
No, I agree. I know that I
was just thinking about kids growing up. They like won't read comics. Not all of them.
I think
I don't know.
They're kind of evergreen because even kind of touching back on the Mortal Kombat thing, we've gotten to the point where the Mortal Kombat graphic novel is canon to the game. Oh. And people who read the comics know who's going to be in the game.
That's cool.
And so, like, they haven't done one yet for Mortal Kombat 11, but they did one for the gap between Mortal Kombat 9 and 10. And so the people who read the comics knew the story leading up to Mortal Kombat 10 and knew who was and wasn't going to be in the game. So, like, it's still transcending because you would think like something like a video game wouldn't utilize outdated technology, like not technology, mediums, but they actually embraced like comic books like later on. I mean, they did it earlier too, but the earlier stuff was just kind of auxiliary cash grab stuff. Like this was actually like to enhance like the world and the story and things. So somehow it just like kind of stays relevant somehow.
I feel like it's hard for kids to get into comics because there's no place to jump in. Like it's really hard for them to just be like, well, where do I start? Well,
comics. There's no way they're going to get their hands on like unless they were like reissues of first runs.
Well, you could do Marvel Unlimited. I mean, you got a tablet or you got a phone even or online computer. You can pull up everything ever, but newer
that's
stuff.
True.
Like
it's all
going to
be like
comic
an
shop
internet thing now.
I feel like if you go into a comic shop, and even there's been problems with Marvel in the last 7 years. Some people were complaining more that it was like they're trying to do diversity on purpose just to do diversity as like kind of we should do this because it's nice to do as opposed to like writing good stories. And the Marvels had like a rather big slump with all that kind of stuff. But I feel like with that, it was more the fact that when kids would come to a comic book store, they would look for Captain America, but there was no Captain America. There was Falcon as Captain America. You know what I'm saying? And when they came for Thor, there was no Thor. It was
Jane Foster
as Thor. So they weren't like coming in to get those comic books or to see the people that they just seen in these movies, but that's who was in the comics. And so they're like, wait a minute, this is not the same as what I was thinking kind of deal.
That does suck, but a little bit of a counterpoint, not to be like an ass about it, but like that's what it was like growing up for me always.
mean,
So not specifically in seeing a movie and then going to look for the thing, but like to go into a comic book store and be like, I'm looking for a superhero that I could grow up to be, and I look in the entire comic book store and there's not a single face that's mine.
well, I'm not saying it's
know,
like
like-
that kind of like they can't find someone that's me. I'm saying
I
that like
get you.
it's not the same characters as what they just saw in.
I get you. It wasn't
Like
the, yeah, it wasn't
Falcon
the-
was like someone else.
Yeah, yeah.
Captain America, you know, like Thor was someone else.
But I-
Spider-Man was someone else.
Yeah,
It
but I
wasn't
feel
the
like
same.
It was always, I know maybe not to kids, but to me it was always made clear that the comic books and the movies were always like separate entities. Like they weren't on the same timelines or anything like that. So I don't know. I think it was kind of cool to like reinvent stuff, but
I mean, they have Riri now as like
Ironheart?
like Ironheart. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. And so like, and you can see how like it's kind of been they've been doing that for the last 5 to 7 years, I think. And they had like a slump pretty much the exact same time as that.
I
So
do agree though that it would be much stronger for them to just create like very strong new characters that
Yes.
were representing than to like shoehorn them into these other things. But baby steps, I'm taking it. Like when they made the first like Korean Hulk, I was like, not the greatest thing, but I'm going to take it for right now
Yes.
until the next thing.
I was gonna say that's the same thing. They made Hulk Korean. That's what the fans at the time were like. Why are they doing this? Are they doing it just because of diversity instead of creating new characters?
I'll tell you what I've kind of learned in LA the last couple of years is specifically in YouTube. It's a really big trend for like YouTubers to be like, YouTube's trying to fuck me over, and they're using the term like the YouTube as like it's like a person, but it's like a very large company. So there's probably literally like hundreds or maybe even hundreds of like perspectives on it within the company. So I would go as far to say like Marvel's probably the same way. There's probably a lot of different motivations. And so some of them might be cash grabs. Some of them might be like, this would be cool to do. Some might genuinely be trying to like work their way, like pull that seat up to the table. Because in like Hollywood and YouTube and film and music even, there's a lot of like fight for representation, both in race, like gender, like sexual orientation, all that stuff. A lot of it's genuine, but I'm not going to call them out now. But like we have a friend that's very close, that's a very like prominent like celebrity that is very big in like the LGBTQ community, but they kind of feign it because that's the way they can sustain their popularity. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's not my place to like out that. But at the same time, like if only like but that shows the diversity in the motivations. There's like, there's some people that are like genuinely like this, I wish I had this growing up. And then there's some people who are like, I could make a lot of money if I pretended, so it's like, it sucks. And there's no way for someone who isn't in it to like know. And so it kind of sucks. Like, I don't know in Marvel, like which characters were like, well, that would be a good fit. Someone genuinely thought that, whether it was or not.
Well, there's a lot of them that had great stories, and I mean, Miles Morales alone was a great arc, and Captain Marvel, going from Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel is a great arc. And so, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in there. I was just saying that, like, from when Vince was asking, if kids are going to be reading comics, the Marvels had a slump in the last 6 to 7 years, and that slump is coincident with all of their characters not being the characters that were in the movies. Like the kids were like, "Oh, I'm going to show up to see Iron Man. It's not Iron Man. I'm going to show up to see this."
They get to the
It's
comic
not
store, and what's hot is not the thing they just saw in the movie.
I guess
Exactly.
another thing they could start doing though is start adapting some of those things to movies. Because like when they did Into the Spider-Verse, I think that really brought Miles Morales to like the mainstream. When we were in Orlando, we talked a long time actually, like into the wee hours of the night with Roberto Blake about how he was like, I finally have my Spider-Man. Like he was like growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in. Like we liked Spider-Man when he was in the suit, but we couldn't identify when he was Peter Parker. Now we have Miles, and Miles is like both Spider-Man and his own thing. But like now kids can like go see Into Spider-Verse and be like, whether you're black, white, or anything else, you see Miles like he's just a cool character.
Yeah.
And so then you can go like to the comic book store and see it. So it might be to mix of both things. If there's really good characters in the comic books, maybe they just need to start making those movies. Because I think Ms. Marvel's confirmed in the MCU at some point. I don't necessarily know if it's a solo movie, but
for
they
the
confirmed like for the series.
I don't know if she's going to be in her own
Interesting.
movie.
I don't think it's going to be his own movie, but I think they said that she's going to be in the MCU.
Yeah, they've talked about stuff like that for a while.
So like things like that might be a good like medium. Like it comes from all directions. Like like everyone needs to work together on this. Like new characters need to be made that are really strong. Like characters that are in comics should go to movies. Like maybe the comics need to make things that are in the movies. Like it's a mix of things.
What are you laughing at?
I'm so sorry. I opened Instagram, and the first thing I saw was Mark Hamill himself, his Instagram. I had made the joke about Palpatine's laugh at the end being Joker. He just posted a picture of Joker with his lightsaber.
Nice.
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
All right, I'm done.
Oh, guys, and
That
I think
being
we're
said-
done.
Yeah, thanks again for sticking around. If you've reached this far, congratulations.
You get 100 points.
That's right. You get my ticket to Endgame. Stay tuned for next week. It's going to be like massive. It's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's
have
so
no
much
idea
crap.
what we're
We've
talking
already even established what's going on before we just went on that last tangent. So me and Rod are part of our KVC. We're a band. We're musicians, songwriters. We got a YouTube channel. You can also listen to our music on Spotify and find that on YouTube as well, as well as all the other social medias. And Josh, you got a bunch of things happening too. Why don't you go
Yeah, we
ahead
just
and-
do Band's Life. Band's Life is what I do when I talk to bands about how they're surviving the music industry.
And then are the kids, they still doing it?
Yeah, they want to. I don't know if they do Nerd Schmert anymore. They want to do it. They just don't have the time, I
We
think.
got some good content over at Nerd Schmert as well. You can check
Some
that
funny
out.
stuff.
Yeah, next week's going to be the big one, guys. And thanks again for listening. This is Yellow Spandex.
I like when Vince says that.
Got to get the movie voice.
Movie voice.
This is Yellow Spandex.
Finish him. I got the voice.